Welcome to the Third House Podcast. I'm Erica, your host, and together we'll unravel the astrological and psychological tapestry that shapes our lives. Join me as we navigate the threads that connect our chart to our emotions, relationships, and inner world. Get ready for illuminating conversation and insight, because self-discovery has no bounds. Hello, everyone. Welcome to your 2025 year ahead astrological podcast. I will be doing month by month. There will be chapters, so you can easily jump back to each month. However, please listen through to the end because I will be concluding with some general notes and also some perspective on 2026. So in my opinion, I think 2025 into 2026 is really shifting us into sort of a new chapter, a new wave, sort of like 2020 did, but obviously in a very different way. So definitely listen through to the end so that you can sort of wrap up and gain that perspective of what 2025 might be really gearing you up for into 2026. So again, this is not conclusive. I do not include every transit. If you want something more detailed that you can have with you on your device or your phone, I do have a very lengthy, I believe it's about 39 pages, about 60 transits completely broken down with advice based on each rising sign, available on my website. The link is in the description below for that. So if you want to grab that guide first, download it to your device, and then listen through this podcast episode to add additional notes about, anything that comes up for you, please do so. If not, I would definitely take notes regardless, because I do go through a lot of key dates, things to look out for, preparatory shadow type periods, that will definitely help prep you before the actual transit happens. But again, this is not conclusive, so please refer to your own chart, your own placements. And as always, I do offer one-on-one sessions for those that really want to go in depth or just need some help or perspective along the way that's very specific to your fingerprint, your birth chart. And the link is in the description below for that. And lastly, my last announcement, I will be increasing my prices, not drastically, but as we go into the new year, as I'm increasing my workload, I am going to increase my prices. So just be aware of that. Please subscribe and come back each month, especially if you're new here. Every month, I provide a lot of supplemental content, monthly horoscopes that break down the transits in more detail along the way. So again, definitely grab your 2025 yearly guide, which goes into a lot more detail as we go through this, or just grab your notes, get ready, buckle up. And again, don't forget to listen through to the end to really take all of this information and apply it to sort of what you might be gearing up for into 2026. Hello, Aquarius risings. On January 6th, 2025, we're really kicking off 2025, in my opinion, with this Mars retrograding back into your Cancer 6th house of daily work, health, and routines. So areas of life to pay attention to. I mean, this is kind of actually specifically for Aquarius risings, where, the New Year's resolution sort of kicks in terms of health, wellness, sort of new chapters you kind of want to start in this area. However, Mars is retrograde. So sort of still in this revisionary period around any actions or desires regarding your daily work, any side businesses, side projects, health and wellness routines, coworkers, Now, Mars rules your third house of communication, your daily environment, and also your 10th house of career, business, and public recognition. So, there for many Aquarius risings going into 2025, there is multiple indicators of sort of work and career being highlighted regarding, exchanging information, communication, any sort of side projects or side businesses you're sort of considering or integrating in terms of, plans of actions or desires going on with that. Then on January 13th, 2025, there will be a full moon in your Cancer 6th house of daily work, health, and routines at 24 degrees. Now, this will technically be conjunct that Mars retrograde at 27 degrees. So this tells me that the full moon happening and really illuminating or culminating that mind-body axis regarding sort of what's going on mentally, mental ideas, work, health, and routine is really being illuminated, but it is playing a part in this revisionary process regarding your plans of action, desires around what seems like for a lot of you, the work and the career situation. Then on January 27th, 2025, Venus will enter shadow. So Venus will actually be in shadow from January 27th through February 28th. This is important because basically Venus has entered the territory that Venus will retrograde back over. So this is sort of the opportunistic time between January 27th and February 28th, roughly, that you could gain contextual clues around specifically the areas of home, family, property, and real estate, as well as anything you're pursuing to increase your growth and potential, right? So Venus rules that 4th house of home and family, and the 9th house of higher education, long distance travel, spirituality, also publishing, writing, teaching, I would put here. So basically anything you're sort of pursuing or contemplating to increase your growth and potential, but also some of you might be gaining contextual clues that you might go back over in terms of a living situation, a family situation, a location, renovation. Any of those things are sort of on the table with this. Then finally on January 29th, 2025, you'll have a new moon in your Aquarius first house at 9 degrees. So this new moon, you're sort of, it looks like you go into 2025 really starting that revisionary process around action, desires. For many of you, it looks like, work, side businesses, side ideas, side projects, exchanging information, looking at where you can maybe increase your growth and potential, and also maybe look at your living situation. What's going on with that? Maybe edit it, change it, strengthen it to support that growth and potential, support the career, the business, and the public recognition. But then you're kind of getting this little opportunity at the end of January where you can sort of create this new beginning, this new chapter around your appearance, your identity, how you want to show up in the world, that you can basically set to unfold over the next 5 or 6 months. But more importantly, I would say going into the end of January, especially as we get into February and March, which I'm about to get to, things are really going to heat up. Things are really going to heat up February, March, even April, in my opinion. So this new moon for Aquarius risings specifically, I think is a great time to kind of sit in this new year and ask yourselves, what are my needs? What is my definition of self-care that you can really sort of anchor into and unfold over the next 5 or 6 months when we'll have a full moon here, especially over the next couple months where things really start to heat up. February 1st, 2025, or even roughly around February 1st, 2025, Venus in Pisces. So Venus will be in your Pisces second house of earned income and self-worth, and will actually be joining or conjunct the North Node at 28 degrees. This is very important because this Venus is exalted in Pisces. Venus has a lot of resources and a lot of strength in the area of your chart associated with your income, material possessions, and self-worth. However, Venus is in shadow. So although Venus is joining the North Node, which is sort of this point of increase, things you may be hungry for, life direction, even purpose for some, is going through this financial house and self-worth, with Venus sort of going over that point of increase, increasing those themes even more. Venus is in shadow, so it's still in this contextual clue sort of building period. But another reason why this is so important is because Venus in shadow is going to continue moving forward, go retrograde, and meet up with this North Node in your second house of earned income and self-worth again, but at Venus's most exalted degree. So planets have their place of exaltation, but they also have within that place of exaltation their most exalted degree. And with Venus retrograde joining the North Node at Venus's most exalted degree, it is, to me, that is a huge flag to say, hey, pay attention. This is adding a level of strength and importance and even priority to the situation at hand. Now, to break it down even more for Aquarius risings, what does Venus rule in your chart? Venus rules at Taurus 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate, as well as your Libra 9th house, anything you're sort of pursuing for growth and potential. Pay very close attention if your midheaven is in your Libra 9th house, because it's going to tie in increasing themes and stories regarding your career and public recognition on top of the situation, maybe with home, family, as well as the growth and potential. So maybe some of you are looking to increase your education, your knowledge, your beliefs, or looking into travel. Maybe some of you are looking into travel for work purposes, business career purposes as well. That's a possibility, especially if your midheaven is in Libra. Again, there's a lot of on the table, so definitely refer to your natal chart. However, it looks like there are increasing financial themes for many of you associated with a home, family, property, or real estate situation, in addition to maybe travel, education, growth, potential that you're looking to maybe invest in. So again, pay attention to around February 1st in particular, where the situation or story sort of amplifying around this time. You're probably going to come back around too with a new perspective, with an added level of strength. On February 7th, 2025, Neptune will now join the North Node in your Pisces second house of earned income and self-worth at 28 degrees. Now, Neptune's been here for a while, so I'm actually I want to talk more, especially in this podcast, about sort of this Neptune cycle that I think is being overlooked. Neptune was conjunct the South Node in your Pisces second house of earned income and self-worth in 2016. So in 2016, what was going on? Especially with the South Node, sort of like what was dissolving, what was releasing, what was letting go, what was changing, that now you might see similar themes. You might see sort of similar things kind of come back around in your life, but this time it's at a point of increase, life direction, and even purpose for some, depending on what that North Node specifically really means to you. So we've sort of done this full circle moment with Neptune in Pisces, where in 2016 the South Node was conjunct that Neptune, definitely amplifying a situation, but it was almost like change and release for many. And now it's sort of gone all the way around the chart, and Neptune is at that North Node or point of increase. So, this is a good time to kind of pause, think what was going on in 2016 that you're sort of having a full circle moment, or you're seeing similar themes, but in a different way, seeing similar themes, but now it's sort of like you can move forward, or you can sort of see the path or the direction, because the South Node can be an experience for many where it feels very draining. It feels very sort of like things, especially in Pisces, and Neptune likes to dissolve things quite literally. It could have felt like things were being stripped from you in some areas of life, or there was just change that was inevitable. And now it's a very different situation with the North Node. So just something to think about, especially if you're old enough to sort of go back to that time and really remember what was sort of happening. Now, February 12th, 2025, there will be a full moon in your Leo 7th house of marriage and long-term partnership. Long-term partnership can be personal or professional. Again, I'm not going to talk about every full moon and new moon in this podcast episode. I'll get more into that in the monthlies, where I get into a lot more detail, so stay tuned for that. However, on February 12th, the full moon in your Leo 7th house of partnership, again, personal or professional, is forming a T-square with Mercury and Uranus. So I think this is probably, especially because it's angular for Aquarius risings, pretty important to discuss, because something can definitely be culminating in the partnership arena. Again, could be, business or work related or personal related, but something's definitely culminating in the area of partnership or the desire for one that is also requiring you to balance your own needs versus the needs of others, where the apex planet in this T-square will be, I believe, Uranus in your 4th house of home and family. So when a T-square configuration is going on, it can be quite tense collectively. But for you, it's sort of like, how can you balance your own needs versus the needs of others while there's a lot of pressure in the area of home, family, property, and real estate to act and change? So again, I think this could be playing into that Venus in shadow, because Venus rules home, family, property, and real estate. So again, I'm looking at sort of the more of the bigger picture story playing out, where some of you might be looking at a financial situation, a living situation, and when this full moon happens, you might be really trying to balance sort of your own personal needs at home versus the needs of others at home, and feeling the pressure around this time to take action and make change, especially because Uranus loves change. Where we are dealing with a T-square on top of this, whenever we're dealing with T-squares, especially where Uranus and Mercury are involved, I've noticed over the years, it has it's very capable for a brief period of time to increase our irritability, anxiety. So it's just something to think about if you're really wanting to make change or you're trying to seek balance, especially with Mercury and Uranus. It can be very activating to our nervous system. So it's a good time to kind of pause, take a break, take a step back, and sort of let it pass, or let that sensation pass. So, you're making decisions from a place that, again, highlighting that 1st and 7th axis of you versus the other. You can take a pause and take a step back and really determine what is really serving you versus others, and sort of how to balance that to make the best, most innovative change needed for some of you around this time. And then lastly, on February 23rd, 2025, Mars finally goes direct at 17 degrees Cancer. So this is, we're at the end of February, and if you include shadow periods, you're actually considering, Mars entered shadow the beginning of October 2024. So we've been in this cycle for quite some time. So Mars goes direct, and I think this could be a time where maybe you've made some necessary changes with that full moon, or you've seen something to sort of change, or was insight, any of those things. And now Mars goes direct. And especially if Mars is direct in your natal chart, you might start to feel that forward movement in your work, your health, and your routines, or know sort of the plan of action and the necessary, your desire around those necessary plans regarding the work, health situation, communication, exchanging ideas, career, business, public recognition. But I definitely think for a lot of Aquarius risings, this is going to involve like career, business, plans or projects, sort of initiating, taking action, moving forward. But with that Mars retrograde, from a place where you've had some time to really review and revise, like what are your true desires around that? What do you really want to do and put out in the world? Now we get into March, where things continue to increase, but we're also entering eclipse season. So March 1st, 2025, Mercury then goes conjunct the North Node in your Pisces second house of earned income and self-worth at 27 degrees. Now, Mercury also enters shadow today. So there's just like a lot of weird business with this North Node. Again, what we're hungry for, life direction, even purpose for some. So it seems like, Mercury is in a financial house for you, but Mercury also rules your other financial house. It rules sort of like your investments, your assets, your partner's resources. And it also rules your fifth house of creativity and self-expression and joy, also children, if applicable to you. So some of you might be looking heavily at a financial situation, and maybe you're looking at sort of, how do I increase my finances and also balance sort of, where I pay debt or I invest or my assets or transformational work or a partner's resources, while also trying to figure out how to integrate and maybe balance joy, having fun, creativity, and self-expression. Now, again, Mercury enters shadow today, so although this is definitely a point of increase going on, particularly more so in the financial arena, it is building contextual clues that you'll go back over or have an opportunity to sort of review and revise. Additionally, on March 1st, while this Mercury business is going on, Venus goes retrograde, starting that revisionary period involving home, family, property, and real estate, as well as anything you're pursuing in terms of growth and potential, that played out roughly from the end of January through the last day of February. And this is also tying in additional financial themes. Then we get to March 14th, 2025, and there is a full moon total lunar eclipse in Virgo at 23 degrees. So this is a hella illumination involving any transformational work, if that's applicable to you. But I think for a lot of Aquarius risings, it's a very strong illumination and culmination around your resources, a financial situation, balancing maybe, what's yours versus what's theirs. If you're in any business or personal partnership where you're merging resources together. So this could definitely illuminate sort of this mutual empowerment, merging financial situation. The eighth house is transformational work as well, where our fears lie. And, this full moon could also illuminate sort of maybe anything that's going on mentally or any work, any sort of transformational work that you've done, again, if applicable to you, that's also sort of playing a part in how you manage money or how you look at money. So that's a possibility with this here. It's important to note too, this full moon total lunar eclipse in this eighth house is opposite Saturn at 22 degrees in your second house of earned income. So, Saturn is your ruling planet. So you could feel this more personally, but with it being opposite Saturn, it's, in the 2nd and the 8th, it's very much like, some of you might be going through a period of like really trying to balance the finances, balancing what's yours versus what's theirs, balancing sort of your own income, and then where do you want to invest it or allocate it. This could also, especially with Saturn, sort of like what structures and boundaries have you built around money and self-worth that is now, maybe you're able to see or sort of work out in the physical or external world. Again, look at your personal chart, but this is a very strong illumination around finances. And with Saturn being involved and Saturn ruling you, it's adding a very personal element, really indicating sort of your involvement in this story that's playing out. But it's important to note that although this is a full moon lunar eclipse, really highlighting your financial houses, the ruler of this eclipse is Mercury. And the following day, on March 15th, Mercury goes retrograde at 9 degrees Aries. So although there could be this situation playing out, changes, things sort of culminating or closing out regarding finances, how you allocate, any financial themes, Mercury going retrograde the next day indicates like whatever's coming up, it could be triggering a revisionary period. So this could be a natural revisionary period to what comes up for Aquarius risings, but this could also indicate, eclipses can sometimes cause like sudden changes, sudden things, sudden insight that changes the situation at hand, where it can then trigger us into a period of, well, now I know this. It changes this. And so now I need to sort of, maybe in terms of finances, like now that I see this or now that I have this, how does that change my budget? How does that change how I invest? How does that change how I look at my finances or my partner's finances and resources? So it's kind of giving us an opportunity to revise whatever is illuminated with this eclipse. And then we get to March 29th. We have one eclipse, we always have another. They come in pairs. And so March 29th, there is that new moon partial solar eclipse in your Aries 3rd house at 9 degrees. So it's important to note that on March 15th, Mercury went retrograde at 9 degrees Aries. And now this new moon eclipse is at 9 degrees Aries. So that tells me that the revisionary period, most likely involving some sort of financial situation, is now sort of playing into this new chapter or new beginning around your daily environment. And, the 3rd house is your daily environment. It's your car, your phone, your laptop, how you exchange information, any short distance travel. So there could be sort of a lot going on in your immediate environment in terms of like plans, appointments, errands, siblings, communication, short distance travel, a lot going on in that immediate environment, that this new moon comes along and is sort of allowing you to maybe refresh your immediate environment, sort of take care of those mundane tasks, take care of the communication needs or the exchanging of information. That might be playing into that Mercury retrograde eclipse in the financial area of your chart, in terms of like taking care of things to maybe get organized financially, get organized long term. But what's even more interesting about the new moon eclipse, sort of allowing you to create this new chapter, a new beginning in your immediate environment, and maybe even anything to do with any communication field, the ruler of this eclipse will actually still be in fall by essential dignity. So this tells me that yes, it is a new beginning. Yes, it's a fresh start, but the ruler of the first eclipse is still retrograde, and the ruler of the second eclipse, creating this new beginning, given whatever shift or change happened, is in fall. So, yes, March is a very weird month where I feel like a lot is happening, but we're not. I think a lot of us aren't going to see the actual like fallout or the external events, the dominoes start to fall until April, where these ruling planets that sort of have a say in the situation, in my opinion, sort of get into better territory, gain a little bit more strength. And then all these other personal planets start to move forward, go conjunct the North Node, and really pull us towards the direction. So, yes, March is eclipse season. Things could shift, definitely change. But I think it might take a bit. There might be some delay. There might be some sort of internal revisionary period for some of us. And as we get into April, I think things will really start to move forward. But on March 30th, before I get to April, March 30th, Neptune enters your Aries third house. This is going to start changing things. This Neptune and Aries business is going to be, I think, a big collective and individual shift where it's going to potentially give us the opportunity to really dissolve structures, patterns, ways of doing things that really aren't serving where we want to go. So the last time Neptune was in Aries was, I believe, about 1861. So it's been a while. Again, this is for many, this is the first time this is happening in our lifetime. So it can be quite significant. I'll get more into it when sort of Saturn joins this party here in Aries. But Neptune entering your Aries third house can really help you maybe dissolve, or with Aries being a fire sign, burn down sort of, patterns, beliefs, ways of doing things that could affect relationships with siblings, extended family, also creating new structures and patterns of communicating with the world, exchanging information that could ultimately support all these other areas of your life. So very, very interesting. But I want to get into April because April is, I think, where we really start to see the external events collectively and individually. So April 1st, 2025 could actually bring us back to February 1st, 2025. So April 1st is when Venus has been retrograde and will join or go conjunct the North Node in your Pisces second house of earned income and self-worth. So again, I want to reiterate, this Venus in Pisces is exalted. However, remember on February 1st, when Venus was direct but in shadow, so going over that territory that Venus was going to retrograde over again. So February 1st, Venus was in shadow, also conjunct the North Node here. But now Venus has moved forward, gone back. So you've been in this revisionary period, potentially around home, family, property, and real estate, and anything you're pursuing in terms of growth and potential, including, writing, publishing, teaching, and traveling. That is now coming back to this North Node at Venus's most exalted degree. So this is adding a level of strength, but Venus is still retrograde. So this is kind of a confusing situation because it's sort of bringing us back to what was really starting to kind of amplify for many of us the end of January, beginning of February. But we're still in this revisionary period. So how I'm currently looking at this is sort of like we've had some time to review and revise. For you, again, growth, potential, home, family, property, real estate, regarding a financial situation. But it's sort of like maybe we can see the life direction. Maybe we can see the path ahead at this point, but because Venus is still retrograde, we may not be able to completely take action on it quite yet. Not at least until I think the end of the month, which I'll get to, when Venus is direct and conjunct the North Node here and moving on and moving forward. But something to kind of note, maybe journal, jot down kind of like what is going on. But I think beginning of April could be the point where we're like, okay, I can see the path, I can see the way forward. I'm just not, it's not ready to come out of the oven yet, if you know what I mean. Then April 7th, 2025, Mercury goes direct at 26 degrees Pisces in your second house of earned income and self-worth, indicating, especially if Mercury's direct in your natal chart, indicating that forward movement of plans, conversations, anything you reviewed and revised, definitely financially regarding sort of creative projects, anything to do with children if applicable, as well as like investments, assets, your other resources, including a partner's resources. And then on April 10th, Mercury will actually join the North Node, go conjunct that North Node in that second house of earned income. So this is, again, another indicator of some sort of maybe financial situation, maybe something to do with planning for children, childcare, creative projects could also be sort of integrated in this financial situation. But this could definitely indicate sort of a plan of action moving forward, or sort of clarity around, maybe your partner's resources, or, your budget, or creative projects, or children, like I mentioned. With it going conjunct the North Node, it's sort of like clicking into place. This could have a feeling of sort of like not only moving forward, but it's sort of helping you move in the direction that you want to move towards for a while. And in addition to that, Mercury going direct, joining the North Node, it will also trine Mars in your Cancer 6th house of daily work, side businesses, health, wellness, routines. So the trine to Mars is telling me that it's tying into that Mars retrograde cycle where you were reviewing and revising maybe your work, your health, your career, your business, your public recognition. So whatever sort of is clicking into place and pushing you in a particular direction that you want to move towards, it could also positively influence your health, your work, and your routines that was under, for many of you, under a heavy revisionary period. Then we get to April 12th and the dominoes keep falling, right? We have Venus finally direct. So Venus is sort of that last personal planet to move direct, start applying to that North Node in your second house of earned income, again, exalted, which is very good. And in addition to that, on April 12th, we have this full moon in Libra at 23 degrees. So this full moon is really culminating and illuminating the area that maybe some of you have really reviewed and revised with the Venus retrograde around what you're pursuing in terms of growth and potential, writing, publishing, traveling, especially if your midheaven is in Libra. But it's sort of like Venus goes direct and starts pushing things forward, especially if Venus is direct in your natal chart. Going conjunct the North Node, indicating a financial situation is involved regarding maybe a home, family, property, or real estate, in addition to anything you're sort of seeking in terms of growth and potential as well, sort of all moving forward. While this full moon that's ruled by Venus is sort of culminating it. So I'm looking at Venus moving forward and this full moon that's ruled by Venus. It's sort of like Venus is that last personal planet to move forward and start applying to that North Node, again, life direction, what we want to move towards. And this full moon is sort of like, all right, we're done here, right? Culminating moment. We can sort of like take a take a deep breath and, we've worked it out, and the full moon's like, okay, and chapter closed, moving forward. And then on April 21st, 2025, your ruling planet, Saturn, goes conjunct the North Node in Pisces at 26 degrees. So this is an additional indicator where you've had a lot of review and revise around financial themes, what you're seeking for growth and potential, work, career, business, public recognition, all sort of tying into your financial houses, where they all move forward. We're kind of wrapping up this story or situation, moving onward, and then Saturn goes conjunct that North Node. So it's sort of like Saturn rules your body, your appearance, how you show up in the world. So this is very personal to Aquarius risings, where it's sort of like all of this is wrapping up, and then Saturn, which represents kind of you in this situation, comes along and is like, okay, me. Like, I choose me, I choose my life direction, I choose my worth, my value. And I am at this point of increase where now I've reviewed and revised all of this stuff, and now it's my turn. It's me. It's very personal. Saturn also rules your 12th house of that subconscious. So you could definitely have a lot of mental aspects to this. Like, you could have a lot on your mind. But I would say with the 12th house being subconscious, going conjunct the North Node in your second house, this could be a moment where sort of you start to see how your mind shapeshifts your reality or your worth or your finances as you move through April. And then lastly, April 24th to 2025, that direct Venus finally joins and goes conjunct the North Node at 26 degrees Pisces. Again, your second house of earned income and self-worth, where we can sort of hopefully wrap this story up that Venus is finally direct, exalted, conjunct the North Node at a point of increase or, overall life direction. And Venus also rules that fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate, indicating that maybe for some of you, a home, family, property, or real estate situation regarding your finances can finally wrap up, be at a point of increase or sort of where you want things to click into place or the direction you want to take and sort of move forward. Now, as things start to really move forward, we get to May. And May 18th, 2025, Jupiter at 25 degrees Gemini. Again, nothing new. Jupiter's been here for some time, sort of increasing or trying to expand the area of creativity, self-expression, romance, joy, and children, if applicable. May 18th, that Jupiter will square the North Node and the South Node at a north bending. So planets can square the nodes at a north bending or a south bending. And Jupiter at a north bending is very interesting, particularly for Aquarius risings, because Jupiter rules your second house of earned income and self-worth, as well as your 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. So this could indicate that Jupiter is at this point of increase. So it could be increase in creativity, self-expression, incorporating more joy, more fun, more romance, or children as well, regarding your finances and your goals and your social network. And so I think it's interesting how this starts to happen after we've had so much revision around this North Node, what we're hungry for, the life direction, and then Jupiter comes along and squares the nodes, creating the change, the action around your creativity, your self-expression, romance, having fun, joy, even children if applicable, where it's playing a part at this point of increase regarding your finances, but also playing a huge part in sort of your friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. Then on May 24th, 2025, Saturn enters your Aries third house of communication, siblings, extended family, short distance travel, technology. So, there's a lot going on in the third house. But Saturn, Saturn entering Aries is a very different Saturn from Pisces. So, Saturn in Aries is a very PO'd Saturn. And we have to remember Neptune is here. So it's not going to, in my opinion, it's not going to be a typical, okay, Saturn enters this area and creates the hard work and the discipline. And, where do we need to build for long term? We'll get to that. We will certainly get to that. But because Neptune is here, it really changes the story, in my opinion, because Neptune wants to dissolve things and Saturn wants to build things. But now with these two together, it's sort of like we can really start to feel, especially through May through August of 2025, in my opinion, we could really start to feel or see or experience that dissolving effect of our boundaries, of our structures or patterns, beliefs that are not going to serve us with the direction we want to take. What I find even more interesting is that this is happening after those personal planets retrograded and went direct and joined the North Node, indicating a point of increase or life direction. So it sort of like gave us this opportunity to look at where do we really want to go after this very strong revisionary process. And then shortly after that, it's sort of like, okay, Saturn and Neptune join in a very initiating, trailblazing sign of Aries and say, well, now you want to go in this direction. Well, what's not serving this direction? What structures or patterns exist that are not going to support the direction you want to take? And so I think collectively and individually, this is going to be a very interesting time. But for you personally, Saturn is your ruling planet. It rules your first house of self, and it also rules your 12th house of subconscious thought patterns, dreams, visions. So for Aquarius risings, it could be a time of really dissolving once and for all those mental thought patterns or limiting beliefs or things that don't really serve your body, your identity, how you want to show up in the world, the direction you want to take regarding how you communicate with the world, how you exchange information. Perhaps it could show up because it's third house. It could show up with siblings or extended family. That's where it could maybe mirror back to you. But all in all, like third house is your daily environment. So what structures or patterns in your everyday life are just really not serving the direction you want to move towards? And finally, we get to June, where on June 9th, 2025, Jupiter finally enters your Cancer 6th house of daily work, health, and routines. This is going to be, I think, good for Aquarius risings regarding not only your work, health, or routines, but also it's going to trine your second house of earned income and trine your 10th house of career, business, and public recognition. But most importantly, Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. So this Jupiter has a lot of strength and a lot of resources to have faith and abundance and expand. Particularly because Jupiter rules your second house of earned income, also your 11th house of social network and long-term goals. Some of you could see increased work, health, or even like side projects that increase your earned income, but also increase your social network and are, at least I hope so, aligned to your long-term goals. But all in all, I like sort of the territory, that Jupiter's moving into, especially because Jupiter's been in detriment in Gemini for the past year at this point. So it's moving into a place where Jupiter has a little bit more strength and tools and abilities to actually do Jupiterian things, which we all love. However, on June 15th, we get a little hip check. We get a little checkpoint from Saturn, because on June 15th, that Jupiter in Cancer will first square Saturn in Aries. So it's almost like before Jupiter gets to like unleash the abundance or the expansion, and for you to sort of like the work, the health, and the routines that positively affect your income, your career, your business, etc., Saturn sort of comes along and is like, well, what needs to change, right? Because Saturn is also with Neptune. So this is not a typical Saturn-Jupiter square where we have this tension or this frustration around, well, I really want to expand here, but Saturn over here is asking me to be, slower or think or have more discipline or maybe do a little bit more work in this area to support the abundance that I want to have in this area. So the square again creates action. But this time Saturn's hanging out with Neptune. So yes, it's sort of like Jupiter wants to go and Saturn wants to pump the brakes, and maybe we're a little frustrated because we have to stop and sort of take care of our Saturnian needs of, all right, I got to be mature about this. I have to be disciplined about this. I need to kind of strengthen this area a little bit more in order to take action in the other area where I really want to expand. This time, Saturn with Neptune, in my opinion, is going to be sort of like, well, what do we need to dissolve? Or in Aries as a fire sign, what do we need to burn down that is really not going to support the abundance you want to have? So, some things to look out for would be, what mental thought patterns or what mental thought patterns, how you communicate, in your mind versus out in the world, things in your daily environment, your approach to sort of taking care of mundane tasks, exchanging information, short distance travel sort of things. Like, how are those daily environmental situations for you showing you where the mental or physical patterns or structures that exist in your life do not support the abundance and the expansion you seek with your work, your health, and your routines? And again, because Neptune is there, it's sort of like, what do you want to release? What do you want to dissolve? What do you want to let go of in order to shift into more of that expansion and abundance with your joy that ultimately could really positively influence your income, career, business, and public recognition? Then we get to June 25th, 2025. And there will be a new moon in your Cancer 6th house of daily work, health, and routines at 4 degrees, conjunct Jupiter at 3 degrees. So I definitely think that this new moon is playing a part in that story, that square, where you might sort of, hit the brakes and be like, okay, whoa, what do I need to release or dissolve in this area so that I can really step into this exalted faith and abundance in my work, my health, and my routines? This new moon comes along and is sort of like, now that you've had that pause, or that, for some of you, change in perspective, or quite literally some of you, this is square aspect, so some of you may have been taking action between your 3rd and your 6th, You could quite literally, have an opportunity to create a new chapter or a new beginning around your approach to your work, health, and routines that could unfold over the next 5 or 6 months, that could ultimately play into sort of that faith and expansion around the work, health, and routines. Then on June 29th, 2025, Mercury enters shadow at 3 degrees of Leo through July 18th, 2025. So now we get into Mercury providing these contextual clues or situations, particularly in the area of partnership, personal or professional, where Mercury rules your 8th house of other people's resources or transformational work, if that's applicable to you, as well as your 5th house of joy, pleasure, creativity, romance, or children. So some of you, especially within partnership, this could definitely be a time where you really start to look at finances within a partnership, or you could have discussions or plans regarding children or childcare. Or, even if you're single or partnered up, this could bring up sort of this contextual period that you might review and revise around what partnership is going to bring you joy, or how, 5th house is self-expression too. So like, how can you maybe support or start to think of ways that you might review and revise supporting your own self-expression within partnership? Again, whether if, you could be single, you could be partnered up, or sort of like what brings you the most joy, like what type of partnership would bring you the most joy. But I think, there's a lot on the table. Like, I think there could be conversations about children, childcare. What are your real desires around joy and self-expression within partnership? This could also bring up money talk, money conversations, resources. What type of financial situation are you looking at or looking for within a partnership? And some of you might even start to contemplate or have situations where you're seeking any transformational work that's going to support the area of personal and professional partnerships. July 7th, 2025, those outer planets shifting into new territory, new signs basically continues when we have Uranus entering Gemini on July 7th. So Uranus is going to start moving into your 5th house of creativity, self-expression, joy, romance, children, etc. So Uranus is the planet of change, rebellion, innovation. So some of you might start to feel again, this is, the ingress period. We'll have a long time to work with Uranus and Gemini, but I think you might get a little trickle, a little whisper of like, where do I really want to change and seek more individuality with my creativity, my self-expression, my approach to joy, romance, or children? So again, we're going to have a long time with this. Uranus will move back. It will retrograde back into your Taurus 4th house of home and family. But something to keep in mind, whenever Uranus is in Gemini, at least in 2025 and going back into 2026, which I'll talk about at the end of this podcast episode, it's going to trine Pluto in your Aquarius 1st house. So this is very, to me, this is really amplifying the themes of whatever change or innovation you seek regarding your creativity, your self-expression, what you find enjoyable, romance, and or children. Whatever change or innovation you seek with any of those themes or all of those themes, it is going to naturally create the transformation to your body, your appearance, your identity, and how you show up in the world. Because these are the two houses that it's sort of interacting with. So I think a lot of Aquarius rising starting in 2025 are really going to start to maybe innovate and change their creativity and their self-expression, or their approach to it. And it's just going to sort of naturally create that transformational effect to the body, to how you show up in the world. So where Pluto was in your Capricorn 12th house, quincunx, it was quincunx your 5th house. So this would have been uncomfortable adjustments to what you find pleasurable, creativity, self-expression, romance. Now it's going to start trining, which is more just a natural flow, which is why a lot of trines get a positive feel to it. So very, very interesting. I think Aquarius risings in 2025 might change their look, might change their identity, might change how they really show up in the world. Either probably most likely through really stepping into their joy, their creativity, and their self-expression, but sort of in Uranian, rebellious, innovative ways. But on July 18th, 2025, Mercury will finally go retrograde at 15 degrees Leo, which is your 7th house of marriage and partnership. So Uranus just entered a Mercury ruled area, your Gemini 5th house, sort of that change, innovation to creativity, self-expression, etc. And now Mercury comes along and is like, well, based off of anything you want to, and again, this is very beginning stages, so some of you may not feel it quite yet, but in terms of general podcast purposes, this Mercury retrograde in your 7th house of marriage, personal, professional partnerships could definitely start that revisionary period regarding finances, transformational work, whether you're partnered up or not, right? This could be sort of the partnership you desire versus the partnership you're in. Either one, finances, transformational work that's necessary, or those conversations. But with Uranus recently entering a Mercury ruled area in your chart, that 5th house of creativity and self-expression, some of you might start to feel that Uranian effect, and this Mercury retrograde could give you an opportunity to say, well, based off of what you want to change or innovate about your creativity, your self-expression, what you find joyful, romance, children, Mercury could give you an opportunity to sort of review or revise how you may want to integrate that within partnership or the partnership you desire. Then, as we get to July 20th, 2025, really, roughly July 20th, July 21st, give or take a day or two, we're going to have this really interesting situation go on with Mars and Venus, where Mars is going to go conjunct the South Node in your 8th house, transformation, other people's resources, including a partner's resources, whilst Venus in Gemini will square the nodes at a north bending. So it's sort of like we have Venus and Mars. Mars is releasing something. Mars is letting go of something, releasing, draining out something that may not be serving you anymore, while Venus is increasing something. So let's break this down. Mars rules your 3rd house of communication, daily environment, as well as your 10th house of career and public recognition in this resource, financial, transformational house. So some of you might be releasing something, or releasing, through transformational work, or releasing something quite literally like a resource that you could be utilizing to invest in your creativity or your self-expression with that Venus. But Mars is releasing something probably through transformational work or a resource that's not maybe serving your career, your business, your public recognition, or sort of communication or daily environmental needs. So Venus, on the other hand, Venus rules your ninth house of anything you're pursuing for growth and potential, and your fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate in the area of joy. So Venus could be increasing, it's squaring the nodes, so there is opportunity for change and action here. However, Venus is at a north bending, so it's a point of increase in the fifth house of joy. So Venus could be quite literally increasing joy, creativity, self-expression through anything you're seeking for growth and potential, also a situation regarding home, family, property, and real estate. Because it's tying in home and family, and it is happening in the fifth house of children, again, if this is something you want or if it's applicable to you, this could be increasing a theme of children, maybe the desire for children, or, anything along those lines. But if children is not applicable to you, it's not something that you want, this could definitely increase themes of something going on with like creative projects, self-expression that's playing into like your growth and potential, and also allowing you to maybe increase something with the home and family front. So I do think that in some way you're releasing something that's no longer serving you, while you're increasing a situation that could be very supportive to your home environment, supportive to your growth and potential, your creativity, and your self-expression. Then as we get into August 11th, Mercury finally goes direct at 4 degrees Leo. Sort of, especially if Mercury is direct in your natal chart, initiating, those change of plans or that revisionary period, maybe within a partnership or the desire for a partnership, maybe regarding a creative project, your approach to dating, romance, how you have fun, also tying in themes of sort of, your resources, any transformational work you're seeking. So it's sort of like, I think a lot of the more amplified themes with this that could come up would be sort of like your approach to joy and happiness within partnership or the desire for one, or how, if this is applicable to you, your own transformational work and resources play into the partnership or the partnership you want. On August 12th, the next day, Venus goes conjunct Jupiter. So Venus joins Jupiter at 14 degrees Cancer. Again, this is your sixth house of daily work, health, and routines. Now, it depends on your personal placement, sort of like what's opposing it, what's squaring it. But for general purposes, we have the two benefics. So we have the two benefics joining together in the area of daily work, health, and routine, where one of them is exalted, quite happy. And so we have the two benefics joining together in work, health, and routine. Venus rules the growth and potential and the home and family. Jupiter rules your money and your goals and your social network. So it's sort of like your sociability, your goals, your finances, your growth potential, home and family all congeal together in this very positive, uniting way regarding, your work, your health, and your routines. So I think, again, depends on your personal chart, but I think this could be a really lovely time to sort of integrate your goals, your social network, your growth, your potential, finances, self-worth in whatever you're pursuing work-wise or side projects or health and routine. As well as, I think this could be a because Venus rules your fourth house of home and family, for some of you, this could be a very positive time where it's very expansive and loving and valuable to your home, family, property, and real estate situation. Either way, we got the two benefics coming together where the planet, where one of them is exalted and able to have a lot of faith and abundance and expansion. So this is tying in a lot of different themes and areas of our life. But Saturday, August 16th, is, I think, a very good day because this is when Jupiter will actually reach Jupiter's most exalted degree. So Saturday, August 16th could be particularly good for some of you. Then on August 23rd, 2025, there will be a new moon in your Virgo 8th house. Again, transformational work, if that's applicable to you. Your resources, including a partner's resources, if applicable. So this new moon, again, is happening mainly in a financial house. And it's providing a little bit of an opportunity to create a new chapter, a new beginning around, mutual empowerment, transformational work, your resources, and even a partner's resources. However, it will quincunx Saturn that recently entered your Aries third house of communication. So the quincunx is basically an uncomfortable adjustment. So if you're seeking a new chapter or a new beginning around transformational work or mutual empowerment, merging resources, a partner's resources, it could require an adjustment to your daily environment, the way you communicate. It could also require an adjustment for you to seek more information through communication, like exchanging ideas in order to kind of set this new chapter in motion regarding those eighth house themes. But either way, we're sort of ending August with probably, definitely like a new perspective. Again, Mercury recently went direct, sort of pushing those things forward. Venus and Jupiter, two benefics joined. And then we get to the end of August and it's sort of like, okay, what new chapter, new beginning do we really want to implement and set in place regarding that revisionary period that Mercury provided us? But where is it going to require some adjustment? And for you, Aquarius rising, it's probably going to be some adjustment regarding sort of your daily environment, how, like those immediate surroundings for you, what's really supporting you, what needs to change within that, in addition to maybe exchanging more information and getting more information and ideas in order to integrate or set this new chapter in motion. September 1st, 2025, Saturn will actually retrograde back into your Pisces second house of earned income and self-worth, giving you a little bit of a last minute opportunity to sort of tie up loose ends regarding any financial situation, budgets, because Saturn rules your 12th house too, maybe any loose ends or different perspectives that you want to kind of work on regarding sort of how the psychology of money, how you think about money or your value or your self-worth. I'm honestly not too worried about this. We've had quite a journey with Saturn going through Pisces. So it's sort of like, at this point for many of us, old news. But more importantly, I think Saturn retrograding back into Pisces is going to give us a bit of a break from that Saturn-Neptune situation, where some of us got that inkling of like, oh, what do I need to dissolve? What boundaries, systems, structures, patterns do I need to dissolve that's not supporting sort of the future that I want to move towards? So sort of like we get a little bit of a break from that, in my opinion. And for some, that breathing room, but also, perhaps you dissolve some things or change some things. And now Saturn goes back into that second house of earned income and self-worth and is like, well, based off of what, what changed or what you needed to dissolve or release, how, do you need to restructure anything financially or self-worth wise? But again, I'm not too worried about it. I'll get more into detail in the monthly. But what I really want to talk about is September 7th, 2025, where there will be a full moon total lunar eclipse in your Pisces second house of earned income and self-worth at 15 degrees, 22 minutes. I have a close eye on this. Again, this could just be my Mercury and Virgo analysis paralysis moment, but again, there's no harm in, seeing something and saying something here that could be very valuable. And I think, again, we have to remember September 2024, we had the full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces, again, in your second house of earned income and self-worth. Now, a year later, September 2025, we have another full moon eclipse in this Pisces second house. But what's interesting is that the eclipse in your Pisces second house in September of 2024, Saturn was here at 15 degrees, 16 minutes. So September 2024, Saturn was in this territory with that eclipse at 15 degrees, 16 minutes. Fast forward to September 2025, we have another full moon eclipse in this area, 6 minutes away from where Saturn was the last time an eclipse took place here in 2024. Is it something? Maybe, but I find it I'm highly suspicious because Saturn ingressed into Aries, so it moved out of this area. And then literally right before this eclipse takes place again in your second house of earned income and self-worth, Saturn retrogrades back into this area. So to me, I'm like, what is Saturn trying to tell us? And the fact that Saturn was literally exactly the same degree, 6 minutes apart from, where it was last time, I'm just highly suspicious of it. I have a close eye on it. Where in September of 2025, we could maybe be revisiting those Saturnian stories playing out around your finances or your self-worth. But in September of 2025, the ruler of the eclipse, Jupiter, will be in its sign of exaltation, where in September of 2024, the ruler of this eclipse was in its sign or place of detriment. So I'm hopeful, I have a lot of faith that in September of 2025, we can sort of get to this moment where, yes, it's an eclipse, there could be change and shift, but there will be, hopefully, because Jupiter is ruling this eclipse in its sign of exaltation, a level of leading us to more abundance, more change, more faith with whatever is shifting and changing with the eclipses. So again, I have a close eye on it. But if you know your personal chart, you know sort of the fact that Saturn rules your first house of self and your 12th house of that subconscious, pay attention to sort of what comes up in September of 2024 regarding finances, sort of what's going on mentally, physically, very individual and personal to you, that you're starting to maybe see in 2025, where maybe there is a full circle moment where you can actually maybe break free from something or move towards more of that faith and abundance. But we'll see as we get closer to that time frame. And as always, where there's one eclipse, there's another. So on September 21st, 2025, again, another very interesting eclipse. This will be a new moon partial solar eclipse in Virgo at 29 degrees. So this new moon partial solar eclipse will happen in your 8th house. Again, transformational work that's applicable to you, resources, partners' resources. This is a new moon, new beginning, new chapter. However, the ruler of this eclipse, Mercury, will actually be in mutual reception with Venus. So, when planets are in mutual reception, it's sort of like they're maybe not in the areas that they would prefer to be in, but because they've kind of swapped the areas, sometimes they have the capability of helping each other out or supporting each other. And in this particular instance, Venus has triplicity, which means Venus has a little bit more strength or support in the situation. So in my opinion, with this new chapter or new moon regarding any transformational work, investments, assets, resources, partners' resources, you can look to Venus-ruled houses to support this new chapter or new beginning around transformational work. Again, resources, partners' resources, financial. This is a financial house. So your Venus-ruled houses would be your 4th house of home, family, property, and real estate, as well as your Libra 9th house. So anything that you're pursuing growth and potential-wise, spirituality, knowledge, beliefs, travel, all those things. So in order to initiate this new chapter, new beginning around finances, resources, transformational work, you could get support or seek support through a home and family situation or, the area of anything you're pursuing in terms of growth and potential to initiate that new chapter. October 20th, 2025, Mercury will enter shadow in your Scorpio 10th house of career and public recognition through November 9th, 2025. So Mercury is going to enter the area of career, public recognition, building those contextual clues, stories, situations. Mercury rules that 8th house of resources, transformational work, as well as the 5th house of creativity, self-expression. So some of you might be building situations around maybe looking at resources, creative projects, self-expression, and how it sort of plays out in your career, business, or public recognition. Now, as Mercury enters shadow, it's going to join Mars, who is home here in your Scorpio 10th house of career and public recognition. What's important to note about this, in my opinion, is that Mercury in Scorpio, Mercury would sort of rather skip the small talk in Scorpio and get to sort of the deeper layers of the conversation, as well as Mars. There's 2 types of Mars in terms of rulership. So Mars is in rulership, rules Aries, also rules Scorpio. Mars in Aries is very get up and go. I want to do. I want to, external energy, push outward. Mars in Scorpio, in this instance, Mars in Scorpio, where other people can't find the way or figure it out or find the solution, Mars in Scorpio will. So we have Mercury entering shadow, building some contextual clue around resources, creative projects, self-expression pertaining to your career. While Mars is sort of going through here, really trying to get to the bottom of it, really trying to peel back the deeper layers, find out the solution or the way forward in terms of action and desire. So just something to keep in mind, this is kind of like a deep shadow period for Mercury where you could really have deeper conversations or get to the bottom of deeper, juicier layers that could support your creative projects, self-expression, resources pertaining to your career, business, and public recognition. On October 22nd, 2025, Neptune retrogrades back into Pisces. Again, I'm not too worried about this, but if you have any personal placements in the last couple of degrees of Pisces, Sagittarius, Virgo, or Gemini, I would pay attention to it. It could definitely play a part or flavor the story that Neptune is sort of trying to tell you. But for general purposes, I'm not too worried about it, but it could be bringing us back to roughly March, April of 2025, where Neptune was last at this around these degrees. So again, I think this is, for general purposes, I think this is sort of giving us a break or some breathing room from that dissolution or dissolving effect that it had in Aries. And it's sort of moving out of that very initiating, fiery Aries sign and moving back into sort of the cooler waters of Pisces. So again, I think where Neptune was interacting with the nodes was, more important in my opinion with the cycles of that. But for some of you, it could be wrapping up some loose ends or some situations, around earned income, material possessions, and self-worth before it moves back into your Aries third house of communication, siblings, extended family, daily environment, for more dissolving effects with Saturn and boundaries. November, these outer planets sort of continue retrograding back into their previous territories, where on November 7th, 2025, Uranus will retrograde back into your Taurus fourth house. Not too concerned about this for general purposes. However, if your midheaven is at the last couple degrees of Scorpio, and consequently your IC would be at the last couple degrees of Taurus, I would pay attention to this cycle. It has the potential to sort of create any change or innovation to sort of major areas of your life. However, Uranus retrograding back into your Taurus fourth house, generally speaking, could just be some last minute loose ends around any change or innovation to the foundation of your chart, the foundation of your life, home, family, property, real estate situations sort of playing out before Uranus moves back into your Gemini fifth house, where I think the trine to Pluto again in 2026 will create more change and transformation on a collective and individual level. On November 9th, 2025, Mercury goes retrograde at 6 degrees of Sagittarius. So Mercury will start that retrograde process, that revisionary period, starting in your 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and long-term goals. It will eventually back up into that 10th house of career and public recognition. So for a lot of Aquarius risings, this could be a time of, revising the goals, the social network, and its effects on your career, your business, your public recognition. But more specifically, Mercury rules the 5th and the 8th, so you could be sort of looking at your resources, transformational work, creativity, self-expression, and sort of how that maybe new perspective or new plan is going to be integrated within your goals, your career goals, business, public recognition. Then on November 29th, 2025, Mercury will go direct at 20 degrees Scorpio. Again, your 10th house of career and public recognition. So this is where maybe that revisionary period starts to move forward. Again, especially if Mercury is direct in your natal chart. You could really see those maybe deeper conversations, again, that I talked about with Mars, really getting to a solution, peeling back deeper layers. Maybe that changed your perspective on your goals or your approach to your social network or your approach to your creativity and self-expression pertaining to your work, your career. And now Mercury goes direct, where you can start to maybe push those plans forward with that new perspective regarding any creative projects, self-expression, utilizing resources or transformational work to sort of push those plans forward within career, public recognition, social network, and long-term goals. as we get into December 2025, it is absolutely fascinating to me how December of 2025 is like the polar opposite of December 2024, which doesn't often happen. But December 4th, 2024, we have this full moon in your Gemini fifth house of creativity, self-expression, romance, joy, children, if applicable. So there is this illuminating, culminating moment in those around those fifth house themes. However, this full moon will square the nodes in your financial houses. So this full moon will actually form a brief, mutable grand cross between your fifth house of creativity, self-expression, 11th house of friends, groups, communities, and goals, and your two financial houses. So again, the moon moves quickly, so I think this will be brief, but I think it's worth mentioning regarding this full moon, because I think, a lot of people look at the full moon, which is great. What is it culminating? What is it really illuminating in the area of my chart and thus my life? But I think because it forms this brief grand cross with the nodes, it's forming a lot of squares, which can create a lot of change. But because it is creating these squares and thus this grand cross, it's literally like a huge X in the chart, in mutable signs, it has the potential to create a lot of adaptability regarding the change. But sometimes what I've noticed over the years is that with mutable grand crosses, it has the capability to create too much change. It's sort of like if one area needs change, it can initiate action and adaptability in the other areas that may not need change. So I hope that makes sense. But basically, especially with it being the holiday season, I think this brief mutable grand cross has the potential to sometimes maybe make us feel like we have to change all these other areas when we don't. So if you're getting into the beginning of December and you're feeling sort of like, well, I want to change this, I want to change that, I want to change this, I want to change that, especially pertaining to like changing your goals, changing your social network, changing, like so many plans with finances and creative projects and self-expression, or, it's like, it's a good time if you're feeling this way. Again, it may not resonate because certain placements in your natal chart will actually mitigate this property. But generally speaking, if you're feeling this way going into December of 2025, it's a really great time to pause, take a step back, let that moon kind of move out of the way. And you might start to feel like, okay, now I can see what needs to change versus what I can hold on to and is working perfectly fine. Then we get to December 15th, 2025, where Mars will enter your Capricorn 12th house of your dreams, your subconscious thought patterns, a life vision. The 12th house often gets a bad reputation. It's like the house of self-undoing. But the 12th house, is like what's going on internally that we're not necessarily sharing with the world. It's not a very public house. And so Mars entering Capricorn is actually Mars' place of exaltation. So this is where I'm getting to what I initially said about December. December 2025, we have the planet of action and desire entering its place of exaltation. We also have the planet of abundance and expansion in its place of exaltation, opposite each other. Whereas in December 2024, we had Mars retrograde, Mars actually retrograding back into its place of fall, and we had Jupiter the planet of abundance and expansion, in its place of detriment, sort of overdoing it. Fast forward to December 2025, holy smokes, we have abundance and expansion with a lot of resources and ability and tools. We have action and desire with a lot of abilities and tools. So there is December 2025, there's a lot of grounds for like a lot. a lot. So for Aquarius risings, I want to kind of break down some things to look out for. Mars in Capricorn, it could really heat up the dreams, the mental aspect of your chart, and thus your life. It could also, Mars in Capricorn, something that I've noticed over the years is, out of all the planets entering their place of exaltation, I actually notice Mars in Capricorn the most in society. So it's like when I go out, running errands, I notice when Mars pushes into Capricorn, because people get a little, like, the energy collectively increases. Mars in Capricorn, again, planet of action, exalted here. My clients that have Mars in Capricorn, the energy sometimes can be boundless. Again, it depends on where it is in your chart. But if Mars is in Capricorn in more public houses, so not the adverse houses. So if Mars is in Capricorn, in your first, your third, your fourth, your fifth, your seventh, your ninth, 10th, 11th, it's probably pretty obvious. Most of my Mars in Capricorn clients, they tend to be very active people, athletic, but Mars entering Capricorn, if you have joint issues, if you have mobility issues, pay attention to that more so, I'd say. I've noticed like Mars and Capricorn can have us like over exercising, overdoing it. Mars and Capricorn can sometimes be prone to burnout or exhaustion. And so it's important to go into December sort of, especially for Aquarius risings, with it being in your 12th house, making sure that you have proper rest, meditation, solitude, time alone to release the increase in energy so you can feel more balanced, especially because Jupiter is in its place of exaltation in the opposite house of health, work, and routine. So it's sort of like these two planets are opposing each other, really looking for a sense of balance. And for you, on the axis of what I like to call the mind and the body. So I think it's very important for Aquarius risings to go into December with some groundedness in what is going to work for rest, recharge, health, work, and routines, so that you can really cultivate and harness the energy that I think we're all going to experience in December of 2025 for good, instead of it sort of taking you over mentally and physically and leading to sort of burnout and exhaustion, especially in sort of like mental and physical health houses in your chart. So I would definitely pay attention to that, especially because Mars rules your 10th house of career and your 3rd house of communication and daily environment. Mentally, you could feel like on fire regarding like communication and career, while you're trying to balance, yes, work and health at the same time, but also, because of what Jupiter rules, your finances, your socializing, your friends, your groups, your communities, and your goals. So in addition to balancing sort of your physical and mental health, I think it's absolutely essential regarding rulership in being able to balance your ability to socialize, stay on track with goals, career situations, as well as financial situations. So just something to keep in mind. Again, I will get into the monthlies, go into a lot more detail, and kind of set you guys up to understand maybe what's squaring it, what personal placements could play into this sort of supercharged exaltation going on in December of 2025, whereas December 2024, it was such a different time, such a, like, honestly, December 2024 doesn't really look like a peppy, joyful, energetic holiday season. So December 2025, I'm kind of looking forward to in terms of like the energy and the expansion that will be available to us. But I think we have to go into it consciously and in a way where we can really harness it as we move into 2026. So I want to sort of get into 2026 and get into a little bit of the perspective that 2025 could be giving us to set us up as we move into 2026. Now, in 2025, Jupiter, like I mentioned, Jupiter squared Saturn with Neptune. But also in 2024, we also had some periodic Jupiter-Saturn squares. So again, the planet of, expansion, I want to go, versus the planet that wants to pump the brakes and, take its time and build, was sort of in this tense configuration periodically in 2024, 2025. As we get into the thick of 2026, roughly, I believe around mid 2026, that Jupiter is going to start moving into your Leo 7th house of marriage and long-term partnership, again, personal or professional. This is going to change things because Jupiter's moving out of that square configuration, at least by sign, maybe not always by degree, but still. It's going to move out of that square configuration and start moving into a trine configuration to Saturn in 2026. So we're moving out of sort of that frustrating, square between I want to go here, but, what's holding me back over here. Now, again, it may not be by degree all the time, but at least by sign. It's in a more, the trine is where things sort of just kind of typically flow, they typically happen. Again, each aspect has positive and negative aspects to it. So trines often are, people always say they're positive, they're positive, they're positive. Well, I've seen a lot of natal charts where it can either be taken for granted or some people don't always use it for good in humanity. So just keep that in mind. But generally speaking, the Jupiter-Saturn trine configuration is sort of like whatever you're restructuring will, hopefully, will sort of create this natural flow to Jupiter's expansion. Instead of it being like, man, I want to expand in this, but I have to like stop and work on this, or I'm held back in this area. The trine is sort of like, I'm hoping we can sort of restructure or work or put that discipline in that particular area, and then that will just sort of naturally feed the Jupiterian expansion in the other area. So for you, as we get into mid to late 2025, you might start to feel like the Saturnian restructuring, especially with Neptune's dissolution around anything that's, not serving you structurally in your immediate environment, your communication, relationships with siblings, extended family, communicating and exchanging information. Any restructuring or rebuilding in that area could positively just flow or help create that expansion to your 7th house of partnership, again, personal or professional. So something to keep in mind as you move into 2026 and 2027. you might, especially because Saturn is your ruling planet, so you might feel that restructuring sort of how you communicate with your world or how you sort of work in your immediate environment, your relationships with people in your immediate environment can sort of naturally fuel the expansion you really want to create in your personal and professional partnerships. Now, Uranus in 2026 will also re-enter your Gemini fifth house of creativity, self-expression, romance, joy, and children, if applicable. So again, we're sort of re-entering what I already kind of discussed in 2025, where when Uranus moves into your Gemini fifth house, some of you might feel very like want the change and the innovation to your self-expression, your creativity, how you experience joy, what you find joyful, as well as, in romantic relationships or, children, if applicable. That change and innovation to that area will trine Pluto in your first house. Again, whatever change and innovation is happening, it could just naturally sort of feed and flow the transformation that Pluto is sort of creating in your first house of self, body, identity, and how you show up in the world. So some of you might radically change, or start to your creativity, your self-expression, your joy, which is going to naturally create the transformation to maybe your appearance, how you dress, the way you look, how you show up in the world, which is how other people view you. And lastly, in 2026, something to keep in mind is that the North Node is going to move into your Aquarius first house of self, body, appearance, identity, and how other people view you. So that North Node is going to really start pulling you in the direction of you. Who are you? Focusing on you, focusing on your appearance, your identity, how you want to show up in the world, your own personal needs, your own individuality. And in reference to the Uranus-Pluto trine, where Pluto is giving you some, starting that journey in that first house, that transformation, with the Uranus in the fifth house, I think in 2026, 2027, a lot of you could really step into like the creativity, the self-expression that naturally feeds that Plutonian transformation to the self, body, appearance, identity, where the North Node sort of bumps into this area and creates a point of increase to it. So I'm kind of looking forward to that, especially for my Aquarius risings. I think a lot of you are really going to sort of change how you look, how you show up in the world. And the North Node in your first and the South Node in your seventh could be an opportunity of, yes, focusing on yourself, your own individuality, what change or innovation to your self-expression, your creativity is sort of transforming the self, transforming how you show up, but also balancing this with the area of partnership. So sort of like what is going on with partnership or the desire for partnership that is going to be, a point of balance, right? I don't look at the North and South Node as like these individual entities. They work together, in my opinion. And so it's sort of like, because the South Node is in the seventh, it's like, how can maybe personal, professional partnerships or the desire for one also be balanced with who you are, your needs, or the changes that some of you are experiencing to the self. So it's sort of like balancing your needs versus the needs of others, balancing the changes to your needs, your identity, your appearance, how you want to show up in the world, with the needs of the partnership. So I think it's definitely sort of an opportunity to honor the individual gifts, talents, identity, to the personal and professional partnerships, while also how it's basically serving, that partnership is also serving you, your ability to grow and expand with your appearance, your body identity, and how you show up in the world.